Welcome to Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat, a transformative live stream TV show that brings wellness within everyone's reach. Each episode featuring expert guests delves into crucial topics like hormonal health, effective detoxification, and stress management through nervous system optimization. Gain practical insights into nutrition, supplementation, efficient workouts, and biohacking tools to enhance mental and physical health. So now, please welcome the host of Hack Your Health, Dr. Nat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat. I am your host, Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp. Welcome to the show for people who are tuning in for the first time. My aim for the show is to bring you guests that can share with us their expertise. I'm also always wanting to give you tools and strategies that you can implement into your daily life. So today we have a topic that most people have heard about: stress. So stress to strength. We're going to talk about strategies to thrive in this hectic world. And my guest tonight is Dr. Mandy Marziaz. So with this stress, stress is not always bad, but we're going to talk about the different types of stress. We're going to talk about personalized tool that you can use to manage your stress. Dr. Mandy is going to give tools of her own, and I'm sure that I will be able to share mine as well. And we're going to look into a more holistic approach to indeed integrate physical, mental, and nutritional approaches to stress. Let's face it, there's a lot of people that are stressed out. It's almost sometimes even a badge of honor when people ask us, oh, how have you been? Oh, I've been busy. So it's just, I think we need to change the conversation around stress. We need to talk more about resilience. So let's bring our guest to the camera here. So her name is Dr. Mandy Marziaz. So she is a women's health expert helping women to get their energy back and mojo. I like that. She is a pioneer in working with high-performing women suffering from chronic illnesses, fatigue, weight loss resistance, autoimmune challenges, digestive issues, and hormonal issues as well. She is truly dedicated in helping women and men too, of course, reclaim their power, navigate stress naturally with more ease, and ultimately life in general. So welcome to the show, Dr. Mandy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation because I myself have done tons of lecture on stress. So I'm curious and super keen to hear your perspective, because we all learn, right? Like, we hear about certain tools that others are using. It's like, oh, I never thought of that. So, but before we dive too much in the topic, I always like to ask our guests, you have become a doctor of chiropractic. What inspired you to become a doctor? Because most of us have a pretty interesting journey on to why we chose the profession of helping others.
Yeah, so I've always been interested in science, and interestingly enough, I've always nerded out on stress research. I'm an endurance athlete, so the way the human body responds to stress, like endurance exercise, has always fascinated me. So while I'm working these office jobs in my 20s, I'm sitting home at night reading these things. So it was kind of always in my path. I knew I wanted to be some sort of doctor, and then did some soul searching, and chiropractic just really spoke to me as an athlete, kept me healthy and able to run. And ironically, when I was in chiropractic school was when I had my encounter with some major issues with my adrenals, and just my relationship with stress. Everything came to a head for me. And that's kind of how I ended up on this path, because previously I just wanted to work with athletes. And then women's health kind of found me when I had to heal myself from complete and total burnout.
Yeah, it's the best way for doctors to or any health practitioner really to learn. So thank you for sharing that story, your story. And like you said, being an athlete, we have a tendency. I have done a marathon. It was on my to-do list before I turned 40. Done it. Not saying that I totally enjoyed the process, but it was a bit of a challenge. But that said, athletes will often push themselves. So, the topic of today is not just for athlete, but, it's that mindset, that better and harder, especially for women, even with exercise in general, to, make sure that people understand that too much is not better. So let's get going with our topic about the complexity of stress response. So can you elaborate so people can understand like the physiological pathways that are activated during stress and, that short-term response, which we need. If there's a tiger running after us, mind you, that doesn't happen so much anymore, but the short-term effect and the long-term effect, because I think it's important to understand those two differences.
Yes. And I love that you said, stress gets a bad rap, but it's not bad. We need some stress. Exercise is an example of a good stressor that we need. It's just, I tell people to imagine if you have a stress bucket inside of you, when that gets full and it's overflowing, you've had too much. And then the exercise will push you over the edge. So the first thing stress does is it activates your nervous system. So we have two parts of our nervous system, the sympathetic part of your nervous system, also known as fight or flight. That's the part that's getting activated when we're stressed out. Naturally, we need to have all the resources to run away from lions and tigers in the jungle. Unfortunately, your body doesn't understand that you're not running from a lion, that you're just sitting in traffic or, just stressful work, or the kids are stressful, or whatever is stressing you that day. Then we also have something called the hypothalamic pituitary axis that is activated. Simple terms, that's how your brain and your adrenal glands, which sit on top of your kidneys, that's how they talk to each other. And that gets activated, but we need that so it can release hormones that we need to deal with the stressors. But if that stays activated for a long time in chronic stress, that can actually become dysfunctional. It actually slows down. And then we don't even have the building blocks for some of our other hormones, like our sex hormones that we need. I'm sure we'll dive into all this. And then it also activates your cardiovascular system. So when you're stressed out, your breathing increases, your heart rate increases, your blood pressure goes up. That's great short term. Again, you need to run away from the lion. You need all those resources. But when that happens day after day after day and we never come down from it, then that's when we start to have more chronic issues like heart disease and high blood pressure and all kinds of things. And then the other thing it also does is it activates your metabolic system. So you need glucose in your blood to be able to run away from the threat. So it brings up your blood sugar. Well, how bad is that if you're just sitting in your car and you're not running away or doing anything? Now you end up with high blood sugar, and we have lots of blood sugar issues today. So that's where living at this level of stress is not beneficial. We need to be exposed to the stressor and then recover from it. Get exposed and recover. That's what the body is designed to do.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't designed with, the deadlines and the constant, hamster wheel kind of thing. So let's talk a little bit more. You mentioned the cortisol, because I think it's important that people understand like the adrenaline of, if you are almost going to get into an accident and it's like, oh my goodness, I maneuvered, and the adrenaline kicks in. So cortisol being that longer term hormone, and how, like you've mentioned, can affect the blood sugar. It can affect the hormonal system, or sex hormone as well.
Yes. So as you mentioned, cortisol gets released from the adrenal glands. That's what we use to deal with the stress. Cortisol takes blood sugar with it, and they work synergistically. So also, if your blood sugar drops, you'll release cortisol to try to bring that blood sugar back into your blood. So they work together. Again, that's great for an acute stressor, but not great for constant long-term stress. And, we've kind of normalized in our society living at this level of stress. Like, that's glamorous, right? It's not glamorous to take naps in the afternoon and rest and do things we need to do to recover. So that's not actually helping our long-term health. And then you have adrenaline that gets released also from the adrenal glands. And adrenaline is what gives you that I'm ready to fight, I'm ready to run, I'm ready to do whatever. But long term, if your body's constantly pumping out adrenaline, what happens? You're way too amped up. You can't sleep. You're having anxiety and panic attacks. So these are the things that happen when we're chronically exposed to those stressors and we're not giving our body and our mind a chance to recover.
Yeah. And it's so true. And I think you mentioned society in general. And unfortunately, I think we're kind of rewarding the people that are pushing to extreme. And like I said, I'm all about people doing what they love to do. If you're a runner and, you push yourself, but it's almost like now that's all that we're noticing. I always say, what happened to the person, like, that lost a huge amount of weight? Congratulations, that's fantastic. But what happened to the person who's been working at it slow and steady for 20 years at keeping her weight, or his weight to a normal level? So I think you touched upon a good point that in society right now, it seems like we're focusing on the extremes. And at the end of the day, any sports to the extreme that it is, from a physical aspect, a nutritional aspect, it's not good for the body. And it's I think it's really important that people think about that. And especially with social media, all you see on your feed are people that are doing extreme things, or you're seeing a snapshot of their lives as opposed to everything that's going on in their life. So it's that sense of false reality, I think, that we have to be careful to say, oh my goodness, I have to push myself more. No. And especially women past the age of 40, if the adrenals are tired, well, good luck when you're going to enter menopause, because I'm sure you mentioned that to your own patient, that when the ovaries are not producing our sex hormone anymore, it's the adrenals that need to pick up the slack. And I think it's up to 30%, right? So if your adrenals are already tired because you pushed yourself too much, then, like I said, good luck. You're going to sadly experience a lot of the premenopausal symptoms and the menopausal symptoms. So I think it's something to really, I always say, like, we have to be gentle on ourselves, like, not to push too much. And I wasn't always like this, but as I'm getting older, I find I am more gentle on myself and listening to my body. Talking about that, like, let's talk about how, building resilience, because it's, I've written a short book on resilience, business resilience, but obviously physical resilience, because it is physical and psychological as well. So how do you coach or help your patient to navigate those negative stressors to be able to cope? Because like you said, there are going to be there. They're not all bad, and there's reality. But how do you help, people and their mindset when it comes to that?
Yes. So one of my favorite things to say is we can't always cancel all of our stressors or cancel our to-do list. We'd love to sometimes. So we have to build that resiliency, and resiliency gives you the ability to handle the stressors when they come your way. So resiliency, I want to say first, is a daily practice. It's easy to say, oh, I have to do this when I'm feeling stressed out, but I need to do it on my good days as well, so that I have that resiliency when the bad days hit. When stuff hits the fan, I want to have the resources in my nervous system and in my body to be ready to go. So, resiliency is just all kinds of different things. You can be doing mindfulness activities like meditation and deep breathing. I follow a program called Positive Intelligence that really has you doing like sensory things, like rubbing your fingertips together, keeping you in your body instead of kind of out here dealing with all the stressors. Just taking breaks. You mentioned, like, we're just in this society where we push ourselves and we push ourselves and we push ourselves harder. Like, professional athletes take a lot of naps. We're women, we're trying to, do these hard workouts and do all these things, and then, be at our jobs all day and then come home and take care of our families. Like, we're trying to do it all. We're trying to wear all these roles all at once, and it's exhausting. So sometimes I just lay down in my office and put my legs up the wall and put on a 5 or 10 minute meditation. So it's just daily things to keep your nervous system calm. Will help you build up the resilience. And then when you have those stressful moments, you will be able to handle them. And then the other biggest thing is working on your mindset. People that tend to be more resilient to stress have a more positive outlook, are diligent about their social connections. You know, in a post-pandemic world, a lot of us are socially isolated. We're working from home. We're not going out as much as we used to. We're getting all of our socialization from a screen, which isn't really the same. So having those social connections, they've actually done research in longevity studies in places like the blue zones where people live to be over 100. And they've shown it wasn't really the alcohol that was benefiting their health. It was that they were having the alcohol in community and socializing. And I know other countries do this really well, and we don't tend to do it as well. So adding these things in just helps kind of give you a buffer system. And then you really can be like, you know, the cool cat when the stress hits the fan. It doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. It just doesn't knock you down and give you health consequences. You know, a lot of us know those symptoms we get when we're under a lot of stress. Well, this helps mitigate that.
Yeah, and you're so right. And thinking of resilience, I think you're so right to say that we need to work on it on the good days. What other practices do you use? Because cold shower and different things like that can help us build resilience. But I always use a word of caution to patients, because it's not time, if you're tired and not sleeping properly, to push and go into a cold plunge. It's not good to push exercise wise and so forth. So building resilience has to do, obviously, psychologically, like you're talking about, and physically there's little things that people can do. And like you said, the breath work, I'm a big fan of yoga nidra. I find having a guided meditation, and for the people not familiar, you can find them on YouTube, yoga nidra. It's 10 minutes. There's 10-minute ones, 20 minutes one, 40-minute one, and I find it guides you through your body, each limbs and so forth. So your mind is focusing on that as opposed to focusing on what's going on in your day. I also like to use the Sensate. I don't know if you're familiar with that device, but it's a vibration device. It's anything, as you said earlier, is to get inside of our body as opposed to being in our head and outside of our body, really. So it's important. Any other tools that you personally use, Mandy?
Yes, so I have a lot of them. I do love the you mentioned like the cold plunges and things like that. You know, that's called stimulating the vagus nerve. The
Yeah.
vagus nerve is part of our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite of the fight or flight. So that's where you rest, digest, heal, and grow. So activating that part of your nervous system will actually calm down the sympathetic nervous system. So I love to do breath work is like one of my favorites because it's so easy. Doing little things like this, literally, I can do this. I can't see the screen. I can do this under my desk while I'm with a client, right? Like it's so easy to do that. I am very diligent about my morning and evening routines so that I'm setting my day up for success and I'm ending my day for success. And then just, doing the lifestyle things like making sure I'm sleeping, making sure I'm eating healthy, that I'm drinking enough water, that I'm moving my body. And I want to say with regards to, we're talking about all these things to do. One of the things that I see in my patients all the time is they're real go-getters, right? Us women, we're out doing bold things in the world. And I say more being and less doing, because sometimes these things just become another item on your to-do list, which is stressing you out. So the things that de-stress you should not be creating more stress. So sometimes I say, just be. Like, what is your cashmere blanket therapy today? What makes you feel warm and yummy and calm and regulated, right? Where your nervous system just feels safe and regulated. Do more of that. And sometimes it's not the things that are on to-do list. Sometimes it's a Netflix movie on a Saturday night. And you know what? That's okay, because we have to do those things that keep us calm and keep us in that state of our nervous system so that we can handle whatever comes at us in life.
And I know I have a good friend that has same age as me, and she started doing a lot more crafts and creativity things and gardening and painting. And I'm looking at her go, and I'm like, wow, I'm impressed. And I'm like, I should probably do less left brain exercise and more right brain, more nurturing exercises as well. In terms of painting, it would be pretty bad for me to start doing that because I'm horrible. But again, something to also push ourselves out of the comfort zone. So you talked about the vagus nerve, and that's segue into my next question with the gut-brain axis. So as you mentioned, the vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in the body, really, that has parasympathetic fibers that is helping us to rest and digest and calm down. So when it comes to stress and gut health, can you help us understand the connection and your tips that you give to patients when it comes to their gut health?
Yes, so vagus nerve is part of that connection between stress and gut health because the vagus nerve regulates those organs. Um, but another big one is cortisol actually can increase inflammation long term. It can cause permanent, you might have heard of leaky gut. So that's like little holes in your gut, and then food can get into your bloodstream that shouldn't be there. And then your body goes crazy and starts mounting an immune response against it. And that's how we end up with a lot of autoimmune conditions. And when we're under high stress and our body's pumping out that cortisol, right? I mentioned the body is preparing you to run away from a lion or tiger in the jungle. Well, guess what? When you're running away from wild animals in the jungle, your body does not care if you're digesting food. So it actually diverts blood flow away from your digestive system so it can go to your arms and legs so you can get away. Well, less blood flow to the digestive system means enzymes are not being secreted to digest your food. It means you're not able to absorb your food. So I like to tell people you can eat all the salads you want, but if you're eating in a stressed out state, you're not even getting all those good nutrients of the good food that you're eating. So it actually makes our digestion less effective. And then, as I mentioned, over time, you've got that, just inflammation, gut permeability. And then, like, let's add to it when we're stressed out, how many of us are making smart, healthy food choices, right? Then we're eating the stuff that further dysregulates our gut. And part of your immune system is in your gut as well. So then you have that issue. Like at first, the acute stress, the acute cortisol actually enhances your immune system. It's how your body fights off colds and viruses and infections. But if you're living at this level all the time, then your immune system goes into a lower gear and it's not as effective at fighting off viruses and things. And then you have this huge protection in your gut that gets down regulated. And now you're not able to fight off any pathogens that enter there. So it's kind of just a vicious cycle that you end up on. So I get a lot of people that come to me and their biggest issues are gut, like bloating and, constipation and all that kind of stuff. And we can trace it back to this relationship that you have with stress.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because maybe we should go over a little bit more about over the symptoms that people can experience. And just tonight, just before the show, my last patient, a male patient that I've had for many years, lots of stress in his life, lost both his parents, and just, a lot of stuff. And kudos to him. He decided to take 2 months off work because he can feel that he's run down, and he's exactly said that he's had 2 colds and just can't get over them, and he knows his immune system is low. So kudos to him to be, well, first of all, able to recognize the sign that he's doesn't want to end up full-blown burnout, that he's taking the time to, and he has the ability to take the time to heal himself. So I think, if we go over some of the symptoms, even focus, brain fog, concentration, sleep is a huge one, right? And typically, a lot of people will say they fall asleep okay, or, two kind of things. They fall asleep okay, or they wake up at 2:00 in the morning like they're ready to take on the day. And that could be a blood sugar dysregulation issue, but it can well be that the cortisol is peaking at the wrong time, because cortisol and melatonin are completely opposite. So that's usually a sign of, I would say one of the first signs is sleep disturbance. Cravings, probably another big one too, if the blood sugar is dysregulated with all of that. So adrenaline and the cortisol can have those effects. Anxiety, heart palpitation, those are all symptoms that can be at the start of the journey of your adrenals or your cortisol being dysregulated, or sometime later on. Anxiety attack can also do that as well. So as we're discussing this, we can hopefully, people can recognize, say, oh, maybe I am suffering from a few of those. And sleep being the first thing is to really address the sleep right away and make it I say sometimes I make sleep my number one job. Seriously, this is how important it is. And I wasn't always like that. And one thing that the pandemic did for me is realize that I wasn't sleeping enough. I was sleeping, but I was not sleeping enough or recuperating. And now it's really cool. Do you use any watches or devices, Mandy? Okay, you use it.
And I have an Aura ring.
Oh wow, you've got the double. So I find those things.
I use this more for training, but I love Aura ring.
Yeah, is it the Garmin?
Yes, Garmin.
Yeah, I've been looking into it actually. So, and I think now, yes, Garmin for running, and I think it even does the courses when you go play golf. So I might invest in two, and it would be nice to compare. But that said, first thing that I do when I get up in the morning is look at my readiness score. My readiness score will tell me how I slept. Well, it's taking in consideration how we sleep, right? And it's taking our heart rate variability, not heart rate, but that too, but the variability. And it is a huge marker that athletes have been using for years to know that they're overtrained. So I look at it, and when I see that my readiness score is low, well, I might take it a little bit more easy on myself. Are you reading that too as well to guide your day?
Yes, it's the only thing I allow myself to do on screens for the first hour I wake up. Is I do check the Aura ring. I let it guide my workout because as I'm an endurance athlete, as I mentioned. So as an athlete, I'm training every morning, but maybe I'm not going to lift as heavy or do the HIIT workout. I'll modify if I'm not recovered. But yeah, like that's what's so amazing about technology today that we didn't have, even 10 years ago, is heart rate variability is a way to measure the resiliency you have to stress. So you have these devices that you can wear and you can see where it is and you can help that guide you. I can see on my Aura ring days before I'm going to get a cold. Like I'll start to see my data is not as good. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to push myself today, or I'm going to take more rest, or I'm going to be more mindful of what I eat and not eat sugar. And then I can stop those symptoms from coming on. So it's really great to have those tools. And I love what you said about sleep because yeah, I'm originally from New Jersey. So I used to think I could sleep when I'm dead. That was my philosophy. And I spent most of my 20s and 30s sleeping 4 hours a night. And, I'm a high performing woman. What else do I do? And I've learned as I've gotten into my 40s that I need to prioritize sleep. And if I'm not sleeping, it definitely lowers my resilience to everything. It lowers my resilience to stress, my immune system, my ability to think. All of that is affected by lack of sleep. So that's key. And with these devices, you can not only track your sleep, you can track your quality of sleep. So are you actually getting deep sleep? Are you getting REM sleep? Those are the sleep waves you want to be in to actually restore your body and your nervous system.
Yeah, because I pay attention to what I ate the night before. I had a meal that was higher in carbohydrate. I also will look at the supplements that I've taken, or if I forgot to take my supplement. So it becomes really great for us to fine tune our habit and what we are doing. So I'm glad we shared that piece of information. And I think now most people have exactly accessed or easily access to this. One thing that I would say is I think, I don't know about you, but I turn it off Bluetooth because I do not want to transmit all the time. And that's one of my that I have about those modalities, because you see people with their watch receiving texts like all day long. This is not good in terms of your brain, giving your body a brain and having those constant dopamine hit, which we don't want. So if you can find something, but that don't get it to govern your life, because it is important that you stay in control. So we're going to take a quick short break, and we will be back, and we're going to talk about how functional medicine, which is what I like to call the medicine of the cause, is looking at helping patients and people address their stress. So we'll be right back.
In today's world, the flood of health information feels endless. But amidst the noise, two experts with over 50 years of combined clinical experience come together to help you with Smart Cuts, biohack your health span, cutting-edge protocols for greater energy and performance. Dr. Paul Sly, a beacon for athletes, weekend warriors, and those seeking to elevate their potential. And Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp, renowned for empowering individuals in their health journeys. Together, they've produced the book, Smart Cuts, Biohack Your Health Span, a protocol-based treasure trove packed with actionable steps. Journey through 5 transformative sections. Dive into sleep, hydration, movement, brain health, and even the secrets of longevity. Guided by their expert hands, unleash the best version of yourself. With over half a century of clinical wisdom and innovative protocols, reclaim your health and redefine your limits. Are you ready to embark on this transformative journey? Smart Cuts, available now.
Welcome back to Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat and my guest, Dr. Mandy, with me here. And we're talking about stress and how to find strategies to thrive in this hectic world that we're in. Let's dig a little bit deeper on functional medicine and explaining what it is, because I think it's gained a lot of popularity over the years. But what is the difference with the approach when it comes to stress of seeing a functional medicine practitioner and the tools that they might give you, and the testing even, so that they will do? Because talk about a tough one to test, right? The cortisol evaluation, which is often overlooked. So let's talk about that, Mandy.
Yes. So I like to say in functional medicine, we optimize systems. We don't chase symptoms. So functional medicine is looking at the person as a whole instead of just the individual parts. If you ever notice, you go to a podiatrist, they look at your foot. They're not really thinking about how the foot's connected to the knee and the hip and everything else, every organ, everything in the body. So in functional medicine, doctors are looking to find the root cause of what's going on. So a lot of times in Western medicine, and I want to back up a second and say, I love Western medicine. I am not against Western medicine. If I break my foot, I am super grateful that Western medicine is there to help put that back together, because functional medicine is not going to help me with that. But when we get into chronic issues, often many chronic illnesses, stress is an underlying driver in that. Western medicine doesn't shine there. So that's where functional medicine comes in. Again, we're looking at the root cause. So if you imagine like a tree, functional medicine is looking at the roots, like what's going on there. Whereas Western medicine would be more treating the leaves. Like, why are the leaves dying? Oh, let's just put something on them so they don't die. We're looking at why did they die in the first place? What's going on in the soil or the nutrients or whatever. So that's one thing. Functional medicine doctors take a very individualized approach. So I know it's a sad state that we're in, but oftentimes with your Western doctor, you'll get 5 minutes with them and they're trying to figure out what's wrong, diagnose it, and, get you some prescriptions or something. Functional medicine doctors, my intake is an hour to an hour and a half. All of my follow-ups are 30 to 45 minutes. So I'm spending time to be able to dive deep into what's really going on with my patients. And functional medicine takes a lifestyle approach. So in my practice, I have foundational health things that I look at first. I even look at those before I start spending a lot of money on labs. I love labs. I'm a data person. I used to work in biomedical research, so I'm a data nerd. But if those foundations aren't in place, I'm not really so concerned what the labs say. I want to get your foundation shored up because a lot of times your symptoms will go away. And then we look at labs differently. So functional medicine has different types of labs we can use that Western medical doctors just are not trained in. But we also look at like your blood labs differently. So Western doctors will have a much wider range that they're looking at. Basically, their protocol is what's the name disease and what can I prescribe for that? And that's great when you need that. But as a functional medicine doctor, I'm looking at how are you functioning? Are you functioning optimally? I'm not really concerned with the label that goes with it. I'm concerned with the systems in your body and how they're able to respond and deal with life, right? So those are kind of some differences. And in functional medicine, as I mentioned, we start with lifestyle and we just spend a lot more time so that we can get into things such as what's going on, what are your stressors, what are your stress management techniques, how are you building your resiliency. I don't think my medical doctor has ever talked to me about that. I think she told me that if I wasn't so stressed out, my hormones would be more balanced. And I was like, cool, but there was no tips given to me to how I go about doing that.
Yeah, it is truly a different model. And you're in the US and I'm in Canada. And you're right, the poor medical systems, I think in general, are so overburdened that the time is not there. And oftentimes people will know that they're not feeling right, get tested, being told everything's fine while they know not everything is fine. So it's important to seek the advice and the expertise of someone like you. So let's talk a little bit more about, and then again, there's no one size fits all. I keep saying that over and over to patient, even more so than I ever did, because we don't know. It's teamwork, right? We work with someone and then say, okay, we're going to take this approach and then we're going to figure out, it's kind of peeling an onion almost to try to figure out the layers and the order that we need to do all this. But let's talk about dietary intervention when it comes to stress. So obviously you talked about figuring out which systems are not doing well, but let's say you have someone and it's pretty obvious that it is a sleep issue, a stress issue, cortisol issue. What nutritional strategies do you like to implement for them? And also, there are some supplementation that I think are some herbs that are very powerful when it comes to balancing the adrenals.
Yes. So with dietary, so I like to say blood sugar balance is kind of one of the foundations of your health. And if your blood sugar is not balanced, you're not going to be able to handle any stress. I mean, think about it. When your blood sugar goes off and you're starving, what are you, hangry? You're not a nice person to be around. So that's where I start with. And a lot of times that's increasing your protein and increasing your healthy fats. I like to add before I take away. Yeah, we need to, get rid of the processed junk that we're eating. But how many of us are eating that and we think it's good for us, right? We know this stuff is not good for us. We're using it a lot of times as a coping skill to manage our stress. I know even me, knowing everything I know, after a long, stressful day, I would love nothing more than a pizza and a pint of ice cream, right? I don't let myself do that all the time, but that's what I want. So it's making sure you have balanced meals and that you're eating regularly. This can also help alleviate anxiety. I used to suffer from panic attacks, and blood sugar was a major contributor to that. And when I skipped meals, my anxiety was worse. So keeping that blood sugar regulated, seeing a doctor, a functional doctor that's going to be able to look at your labs and say, hey, you've got insulin resistance going on. Let's start coming after this now before it's something like diabetes. So good protein. Protein will nourish the adrenals. I know this isn't always the popular opinion, but I'm going to fully admit when I had my problems with my adrenals, I was a vegetarian, and I was not even like, I was a pretty healthy vegetarian, but I was still eating a lot more carbs and a lot
Mhm.
less protein. I wasn't being mindful of that. I do work with some vegan patients who we have it dialed in that they can do it, but most people aren't going to nourish their adrenals without animal protein. And that's what a naturopath said to me. And took a few months of me thinking about it, but then I started incorporating some healthy animal protein into my life, and it actually helped me. Um, and then there is lots of herbs. There's things called adaptogens, which means they help your body adapt. They adapt to your stress resilience. So if you don't need it, it's not going to be overloading your body. Um, Ashwagandha is one of my favorites. There's rhodiola. There's different mushrooms. There's all kinds. That is like a class all on its own, and that's another thing that's very individualized. So I also love working with practitioners on that, because I will tell you, like, I'm a person that can't take ashwagandha. It
Mm.
does not chill me out. It actually revs me up. So if I take that before bed, I'm in big trouble. So working with someone that can, look at your genetics in your labs and everything and be able to customize a protocol for you is super helpful. But if you're just going to like go to the store, I have some blends that I like that I'll just get, or you can just go buy a chamomile tea and,
Yeah.
love drinking that before bed. That can just help you relax. But yeah, being mindful of nutrition is big in helping us just have that resiliency.
Yeah, it's funny. I do really well on the ashwagandha, and it's probably saved me having a horrible menopause just because I use it, and I still use it to this day. And there's a lot of companies do too, without naming names per se, that have formulas that will be a support for the adrenal, either glandular or herbal. There are some too that will help their GABA regulator. So it's not that they necessarily have GABA. Some can have, and GABA is that, just for people to know, it's that calming, relaxing neurotransmitter that we have. And sometimes some people don't do well with GABA, but they can take other vitamins and supplement and herbs that will regulate the GABAergic reaction in the body. So there's a lot available. We just have to be careful, right? That, you're buying quality supplements, or buying it through a healthcare practitioner or a company that you trust. And then it's a little bit of, trial and error. And again, we talked about the Oura Ring and Fitbit, or tracking your sleep and your HRV. This is, to me, trying to find that happy balance between what you're doing, what you're consuming, and then test it, right? I always say, when people go get medication, especially when it comes to the brain, they'll give it to you and say, well, let's try this and see how it goes. Well, it's kind of the same thing for the natural supplements. You have to figure out what works for you. And sometimes a solo herb will work. Sometimes you need a few together. Is there specific supplements yourself that you use before you go to bed, Mandy?
Yes, I use a CBD formula. I have a supplement company out here in Colorado that I love. They do very good research on all their products, so I'll use that. And I've also gotten into bioidentical hormones as a woman
Mm-hmm.
over 40. You mentioned GABA. Progesterone helps bring GABA up, so I love. I was so against it for so long. And then I found this company that has some really good quality bioidentical hormones. And I've been using that to help give me some resiliency, because one thing for the people listening to the show that are in perimenopause or postmenopause, we actually lose some stress resiliency during this time. That's really true. Estrogen, who was your best friend and you didn't appreciate her when she was around, she gave us a buffer against stress and cortisol and all that. So when we hit midlife and we're like, I just don't feel like I handle stress as well, that's physiologically true, and there's lots of things we can do about that.
Yeah. Yeah, and good point. And thank you for mentioning that. We actually had someone on the show last week, and we talked about hormones. And I think, again, we can't be. It's not a one size fits all, and you need to have a proper evaluation and figure out what is the best thing for you. And the bioidentical hormone can be a game changer for people, because otherwise you might have everything else dialed in and you're still not getting that sleep. You're still tired. So looking into those are definitely important. When it comes to using food to help us, it's funny that you say that with the vegan and vegetarian, because a mentor of ours mentioned that he's an expert in functional medicine, and he treats a lot of the very complicated cases, and he says he doesn't even work with people that are vegan, because he knows that there are certain things that the body needs. And again, neither one of us have necessarily anything against it, but we have to be realistic that the body does need it does very well with animal protein, and sometimes we need to look at the diet. But protein and fat definitely very, very important. So we talked a little bit about some technique that we both use. I mean, we're both chiropractors by training, so we cannot not mention a chiropractic adjustment, obviously. And a lot of time people will associate chiropractic with neck pain, back pain. And you and I have this conversation all the time that yes, we can help with that, but adjusting the spine, we're balancing that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system so the body can balance itself out. And we see it all the time. People will literally get up from our table and we'll have that big sigh of and it's not like we've asked them to do that. The body is now able to do that. So where I'm going with this is tools and strategies that people can implement. We've given people some, but I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the breath work, because you said it's one of your favorites. So I'd be curious to see what type of breath work you use. And do you also use biofeedback with some of your clients or for yourself?
Yes. So I don't use biofeedback a whole lot. I like the technology. I just actually transitioned to working virtually during the pandemic, and so it's a lot harder to. I mean, there are some things you can send people home with and stuff. It's just not something I'm currently implementing. But the breath work I love, and as I said, it's so simple. You can do it in traffic. You can do it at your desk. You can do it anywhere. And there's two different types. So I do like box breathing, which is where like you would inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, and repeat. And you only need to do this for a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to take a long time. The other thing I like about breath work is to just lengthen the exhale compared to the inhale. So when you breathe in, maybe for a count of 4, and you exhale for a count of 8. Lengthening the exhale actually brings up that parasympathetic part of your nervous system that I talked about, where you're resting and calm and healing. And if you just try it, if you just take some deep breaths and lengthen the exhale, you will feel calmer. So yeah, that's my favorite. And then other things, I have like handouts I send people with things to activate the vagus nerve. There's a lot we didn't talk about, like gargling and singing, and breath work activates the vagus nerve. And then I like to do some sort of mindfulness. I like to tell people to find what resonates with them. So if that's meditation, if that's a gentle yoga practice, you're not getting as much of the nervous system benefits in hot yoga, not that there's not a place for that, but the more gentler forms of yoga, you mentioned yoga nidra. I love that. We have apps now for meditation. I love having apps on my phone that I can even bring up things to listen to before bed that just get my nervous system calm so I'm able to sleep. So those are some of the tools and resources that I use with clients. And one of the things when I'm working with people is I like to let's build your stress toolkit. Like, what is in your toolbox that you do on the daily basis? What are the things that you bring in when you are in more challenging times in your life? Because sometimes we have to double down and we have to be even more mindful of what we're doing to calm the nervous system down.
Yeah. And I think nature is another big one too. Like if I feel like I'm stressed out or just my head is racing, my mind is racing, I'll just put on my running shoes and just find the closest wood that is in my neighborhood and just go and just breathe. And thank you for bringing the inhale and the exhale, because, and I challenge the people listening to try it. Inhale for 4, exhale for 8. Do that, 5, 6 breaths. You'll feel yourself calming right down. So I think breath work is probably the fastest way we can change our state. It doesn't cost anything. We have access to it. I mean, even in the car when we're driving. So this is something that we can do that can really, really make a difference. And it's funny because when people are stressed out, we say breathe, but I think sometimes the advice is wrong, because people end up hyperventilating and it's making things worse. So when we say breathe, we have to remember that rhythm that's important, right?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. So I think, we've covered a lot on stress, and early on in the show, and I didn't push you too much on it. You talk about your morning routine and your evening routine. So I always like to ask my guests what their non-negotiables look like. And in our book, Smart Cut, my co-author and I, we were trying to figure out how to simplify things for people, because it can be overwhelming. You cannot do everything every day. It's impossible. And I even say that to patients sometimes with even supplements and certain things that we take. So to me, I look at things, what I know I want to do daily. Some is weekly, some is monthly, and some is quarterly. So I'd love to hear your non-negotiable and your morning and evening routine, because like I said, I'm curious. We always learn from each other, tips and tricks. So share with us, please.
Yes. So my total non-negotiable is my morning routine. I am much more of a morning person, so I won't say I'm perfect with the evening routine, but in the morning, I do no screens for the first hour that I'm up. I start my day with electrolytes, or at the very least, a lemon water, even before I have any caffeinated beverages. I do love coffee, so that's a non-negotiable. I have to have my coffee. And I always exercise in the morning. I also start my morning off. I have an app on my phone that I listen to. It's kind of a meditation for the day, kind of sets the tone. I do a little bit of journaling. As a busy type A woman, this journal exercise I'm going to share with you is something that just keeps me focused. So I start with 3 things I'm grateful for, because you've got to bring your gratitude, get you in that positive mindset, and then 3 goals for the day. And as many listeners know, I'm sure we all have endless to-do lists, and my to-do list is never completely done. So at least I have 3 things that I'm going to accomplish for the day. And then I exercise, and then I have a healthy breakfast before I start seeing clients or anything else. Then my end of the day routine. So I am very diligent about pulling that journal back out, going through, checking off my goals. So I hit my 3 goals. Everybody likes to put a check mark next to your list. And I do a brain dump. So I am the person that can easily toss and turn all night long with the monkey brain. So the brain dump just helps get everything out of my head. And when I heard it, I didn't think it was going to work. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm not going to stop thinking about this stuff, but it really works. So try it. So I do a brain dump. And then I end that with 3 things that went well today. So the last thing I'm thinking about is what went right, not all the things, all my to-do list in my brain, right? So 3 things that went right. And then the rest of my evening routine is I do try to avoid screens at least an hour before bed. If I'm watching a Netflix movie or something, I try to have my blue light blockers on, and eating 3 hours before bed. You mentioned the Oura Ring data. And I can tell you, when I have a late meal, and I go to bed pretty early, so I have to eat pretty early. But when I have a late meal, I don't get as good sleep. Like, my deep sleep is affected. So now my quality of sleep, and then of course that readiness score is lower in the morning because I didn't get good quality sleep. So those are my non-negotiables. And I love that you brought up like monthly things, quarterly things. At least once a week, I have to get outside in nature. Like I'm outside every day walking or running, but I live in suburbia. So, it's a lot of concrete neighborhoods. On the weekend, I live in Colorado. It's beautiful out here. I want to get out to a trail where I'm actually in nature and feeling restored. And then quarterly goals, I just try to take 1 week per quarter I take off. So I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business, but many of us have jobs with, vacations and things like that, but really taking the week off, like not working, not checking email, even if it's a staycation, just giving myself that downtime. Again, as I mentioned, more being and less doing.
Oh, thank you. And it's funny because I have been to Colorado at a retreat in the mountain, and I remember our phones didn't work. And that was a long time ago, and we were not as dependent on phone as we are. And we were kind of all freaking out at first, but it felt good. So I don't know if when you go into your trail, you lose phone reception, but it's kind of a good thing sometime, right?
Yes. And that's my rule when I go camping. I used to live in Oregon. And none of the campsites I went to had any cell phone reception, so it was great. And here in Colorado, they all do. But I put the phone away. I'm like, not gonna check it. Yeah, because it is nice to take a break from that.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mandy. And for people that want to find out more about what you do, because you do work virtually, if you don't mind giving people your website. I'm not sure if you're active on Instagram, so they could get more information. So what is your website?
My website is www.drdrmandymarziaz.com. So just my name, which you can see up in the screen here. drmandymarziaz.com. And I do have an Instagram handle. Again, it's Dr. Mandy Marziaz. And I also have a Facebook page. My business is called Vital Wellness.
Perfect. So don't be shy if you need help, if you need to find strategies to deal with the stress. And like my patient did, recognize the fact that he was heading for a burnout and taking the time, because we don't want to get to that. So thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Hopefully we got you thinking. Hopefully we gave you tools to add to your toolkit to go from stress to strength and really be able to build resilience. So thank you so much. Have a great week.
Welcome to Dr. Nathalie's 7-Day Hack Your Health Challenge. Transform your fitness level with 7 quick, do them from anywhere workouts. Look and feel great. Nutrition. Master the art of optimizing your diet and maximizing nutrient intake with daily nutrition challenges. Biohacking. Unlock exclusive content to tap into your body's innate wisdom. Take on challenges to optimize your mindset and physiology. Ready to transform your health? Visit www.dranat.life to join Dr. Nathalie's 7-Day Hack Your Health Challenge. Your journey begins now.
This has been Hack Your Health with Dr. Nat. Tune in each week and uncover simple yet powerful strategies and actionable steps to elevate your health and wellness.